Although I anticipated it, I still ended up being cheated on. At 26, I found myself dating a 25-year-old girl from my university. We belonged to different programs, yet the initial 6 months were delightful. She showered me with kindness and affection, and we shared many enjoyable moments. However, the dynamics shifted as my final exams approached. These exams held significant weight in determining my overall grade, compelling me to concentrate intensely, particularly due to the difficulty of some of my courses in chemical engineering. I had to sacrifice leisure time for rigorous study sessions. When I discussed my predicament with her, I clarified that my academic pursuits demanded rigorous dedication, unlike her perceived simplicity in pursuing a degree in hospitality management. At that conversation, she seemed to get it and didn't mind the idea of us not seeing each other as often for a while. We managed to catch up about once every week and a half. During this period, we didn't text each other as much as we used to because I was so busy, but we still kept in touch. Then one night, while I was wrapping up some school projects that needed to be done, she texted me about a friend of hers. To keep things private, I'll call him Brian. She told me Brian was just a friend, but she talked about him in a way that made him seem like a pretty important person in her life. She said he was a really good guy and they were close friends. This was the first time she brought him up, and it seemed like there might be more to tell about their friendship. Brian was super outgoing and seemed to know everybody. He was the type of guy who could walk into a room and instantly make friends with everyone. Me, on the other hand, I'm the total opposite. I'm much more of an introvert and prefer hanging out with a small circle of close friends, and pretty much everyone else is just an acquaintance to me. After my finals were over, my girlfriend and I started spending more time together again, but it felt like no matter what we were doing, she kept bringing up Brian. At first, it was just a bit odd to me, but it quickly became really annoying. It seemed like she couldn't stop talking about him, and it was always Brian said this or Brian did that. So, one day, partly because I was so irritated and partly as a joke, I threw out there, "What's the deal? Do you want to date him? Or something?" I also asked her why she was always talking about him all the time. I thought she'd laugh it off, but she did the complete opposite. She got really offended and even suggested that I was accusing her of cheating. That reaction made me start to wonder if maybe there was more going on than I thought. Why would she get so defensive if it was just a silly joke? Despite my growing suspicions, I decided to wait for any real evidence before jumping to conclusions. But as time went on, she began canceling our plans last minute, or sometimes she wouldn't show up at all. The worst was on my birthday. We had plans to go to a restaurant with my dad to celebrate, and she stood me up. Even my roommate noticed how down I was feeling and checked in on me a few times. She saw that I was upset quite often and finally approached me to talk about it. After a few months, eventually I asked my ex to meet me at a coffee shop to talk things through. That whole week leading up to our meeting, I was in a really bad mood. I guess I was mentally preparing myself to possibly end the relationship. When she arrived at the coffee shop and tried to kiss me, I just couldn't reciprocate. I pulled away instead. When she saw how serious I was, she immediately looked worried and asked me, "What's wrong?" I responded with something my dad always used to say when he suspected I was keeping secrets. "I already know." It was a line that somehow always brought out the truth. Seeing my stern expression, she hesitated for a moment and then asked nervously, "Who told you? Was it Kev?" Kev is my best friend, the guy I trust with just about everything. Even if Kev had told me something, I wouldn't just take it at face value without checking further. So, I just shrugged and said, "Maybe, but I want to hear it from you." That's when she broke down, tears streaming down her face, apologizing profusely, saying she never meant to hurt me. Through her sobs, she admitted she had been seeing Brian for the last 2 months. I felt so many emotions at once. I wanted to cry, scream, and let out all the anger, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Somehow, I already suspected something was off. Trying to keep my composure, I just asked, "How did this happen?" She told me her side of the story. "We were at a party with some mutual friends during your finals. You were so busy, and I felt like you weren't paying any attention to me. I was outside feeling really upset, and Brian came over. He talked to me, and he had this way of making me feel safe and loved. It was different from how you made me feel, and I liked it. After that night, they started meeting up more frequently every weekend. Her words hit me like a punch to the stomach. The pain was immense, and it made me feel physically sick. She kept trying to apologize, saying that we could still make it work between us, but deep down, I knew it was over. I calmly told her, "Enjoy this last coffee you're going to have with me because it's the last one." That was the moment I knew there was no turning back. After paying for both of our coffees, I left the coffee shop without saying goodbye. That whole experience left me feeling drained, and I needed some space to think. Later that night, I found myself dialing my dad's number. I really needed to hear a familiar voice, especially since I had never really asked him for advice about relationships before. My dad listened quietly as I explained everything that had happened. He didn't give me any direct advice on what to do next, but he shared some wisdom that really struck a chord with me. He said, "What's not meant to be will never be," and advised me not to hold on to any bitterness towards her or Brian. He even quoted his favorite artist, saying, "How beautiful is revenge when God grants it to us." It was his way of reminding me that sometimes the universe has a way of righting wrongs without us having to do anything. A few months later, I heard from one of her friends that my ex had gotten pregnant by Brian, and he was refusing to take responsibility for the child. To make things more complicated, my ex was telling her parents that the child was mine, even though we had broken up over a year ago. Hearing this, I realized just how messy things could get, but I decided not to get too worked up about it and just let life take its course. It took some time, but I eventually moved past all the drama and hurt, and in a funny twist of fate, I started dating my former roommate. We always got along well, and it turns out we're pretty good for each other. Thanks for letting me share my story. It's been quite the journey, but I'm grateful for where I am now. Now, for the comments before reading the update. Funny how things turn out, isn't it? In the end, she got nobody and will probably end up yet another single mom working a job she hates and dating scumbags who don't give a damn about her. Good for you on having the integrity and self-respect to get rid of such a toxic person. In the future, never date any woman who has that close guy friend. I agree with that 100%. Women who say, "Oh, all my friends are guys, and I've never cheated on my boyfriend," are all full of it. She sounds like a hoe. If she couldn't deal with less attention for a week and a half without jumping on another guy's dick. But a second concern for you should be her automatically guessing that your friend Kev is the one that told you. You may have more than one traitor in your midst. That is true. I would keep an eye on Kev, that's for sure. Well played, sir. Careful with that accusation. That paternity, though. The parents need to know it's not yours so they don't go after you. Good luck. Now, for the update. So, just a few days ago, I got a phone call that really turned things upside down. It was from the dad of my ex-girlfriend. He was super upset and basically called me out, accusing me of being a coward. He said that I left his daughter after she got pregnant and that it was my fault she was thinking about dropping out of school. That was a huge accusation, and I was totally taken aback because it just wasn't true. I had to explain to him that there was no way I could be the dad of the baby because we had broken up quite a while before she could have become pregnant. Then he dropped another bombshell. He told me that my ex was still going around telling everyone that we were together. That was news to me and just made things even more complicated. But wait, there's more. The next day, while I was out for my usual morning jog to clear my head and get some exercise, guess who I bumped into? Brian, the same guy who is actually the father of my ex's baby. We locked eyes for a second, and it was super awkward. He walked over to me, looking really worried. He started talking about how he was scared of becoming a father and didn't know what to do. It was weird because Brian and I aren't exactly friends. He knows I don't like him much, but it seemed like he had nowhere else to turn, so he came to me for advice. Even though it was an odd situation, I felt like I had to say something. So, I told him straight up, "You need to face this and be there for your child. It's not the kid's fault that all of this is happening, and that little one deserves to have a dad who cares." I wanted him to understand that even though the situation was tough, he had to step up and take responsibility. And just when I thought I'd had enough drama for a while, I woke up today to find out my car had been completely vandalized. I discovered that sometime during the night, someone had smashed it up pretty badly. Thankfully, the area where I parked my car had some CCTV cameras, and they caught some footage of what happened. It's just been one thing after another. What a way to start the year, right? It's been really rough, and handling all this has been quite the challenge. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for reacting wrong to my brother's engagement? Sorry if this is kind of all over the place. This all started last Sunday. I'm a 19-year-old college student, and like most Sundays, my family, who are spread out a bit, decided to catch up over a Zoom call. It's our way of staying connected, seeing how everyone is doing, sharing any new updates, just regular family stuff. So, we were all logged in, chatting and laughing when, out of the blue, my brother Harry, who's 22, drops a bombshell. He's gotten engaged to his girlfriend, Jessica, who's 20. Now, engagements are usually big happy news, right? And sure enough, my whole family started buzzing with excitement. There were congratulations going around, people were smiling, asking about wedding plans, the whole 9 yards. Everyone was thrilled, except, well, me. I didn't join in the excitement. Instead, I just sighed and stayed pretty much silent. It wasn't like I planned to react that way. It's just that hearing the news brought up a lot of mixed feelings for me. Harry noticed I wasn't thrilled, but he didn't say anything at the time. However, after the call, my mom didn't hold back. She called me separately to express how upset she was with my reaction. She thought I was rude for not being excited and told me that I need to show respect to all family members, including Jessica. She even hinted that my behavior could affect whether I get invited to a family vacation planned for the spring. Let me give you a bit more background about why this is complicated for me. Growing up, Harry and I were inseparable. We did everything together. But as often happens, we drifted a bit when we both went off to college. We still talk regularly, maybe every week or two, but it's not like before. And he's been dating Jessica for around 2 years now. Here's the thing. I knew Jessica before she started dating my brother. We went to the same high school, and to put it mildly, she wasn't the kindest or most straightforward person. She frequently didn't pay attention in class, often trying to sneak a peek at other people's homework. And there's more. She nearly managed to steal my boyfriend from me once. She was also pretty mean to one of my closest friends, making fun of her weight and other things, which really played a part in worsening my friend's eating disorder. So yeah, given all that history, you can probably see why I found it hard to jump up and down with joy about their engagement. It's not that I want to hold a grudge, but it's tough to just forget all that happened and fully embrace this news. And that's what led to the whole awkward situation and the fallout with my mom. That brings us to another part of the story that makes this whole situation even more complicated. About 6 months ago, I decided it was important to have a serious conversation with Harry about Jessica. Given all the things she had done in the past, I felt like he needed to know everything from my perspective. I hoped that by sharing my concerns and detailing Jessica's past actions, Harry might take a moment to really think about whether this relationship was good for him. During that conversation, I laid it all out. The cheating in class, her trying to steal my boyfriend, the way she treated my friend. I tried to be as honest and clear as I could. Harry listened, and he said he'd think about what I told him. But after that, we didn't really dive into it any deeper. Since that talk, things between us seemed pretty normal. We kept up our regular chats, and while he didn't hide that he was still with Jessica, he didn't bring her up much either. I actually thought maybe their relationship was cooling off because he wasn't talking about her a lot. So you can imagine my shock when he announced they were engaged. It was totally out of the blue for me. I had no clue they were that serious, especially since he hadn't mentioned anything about moving their relationship to the next level. Now, I'm not sure if he kept it quiet just around me, or if it was a surprise to others in the family too. Then there's another twist. After their engagement announcement, Jessica posted something on Facebook that really bothered me. She wrote, "I know not everyone in our families is supportive, but we have each other, and that's what matters." This message made me wonder if Harry had told her about our conversation. It felt like a direct jab at me, hinting that she knew I wasn't on board with their marriage. All of this makes me feel really stuck. I love my brother and want to support him, but it's tough when it involves someone who's had such a negative impact on people I care about. Now, with my mom pressuring me to be happy about the engagement and the upcoming family vacation on the line, I'm not sure how to handle all these mixed emotions. It's a lot to think about, and I'm trying to find the best way to be true to my feelings while still keeping the peace in the family. After I told my brother about some not-so-great stuff his girlfriend did in the past because I was worried about him, instead of keeping it between us, He went ahead and told her everything I said. Now I'm stuck wondering if I should just keep quiet and pretend everything is cool to keep the peace in the family. Part of me thinks maybe that's the best way to avoid drama, but then another part of me feels like if I just act happy and don't say anything, I'm not being true to myself. It would feel like I'm letting down my old friend who was hurt by his girlfriend, and I'm also not being honest about my own feelings. Plus, I don't want my brother to think it's okay to just ignore the stuff I told him. And to be honest, keeping quiet when something bothers me is really hard. I'm not good at hiding what I really think or feel. So I'm trying to figure out what to do without causing a big mess, but also staying true to what I believe is right. So am I the a-hole for feeling upset and possibly wanting to voice my concerns again, even though it might cause friction in my family? Or should I just keep my feelings to myself and let Harry make his own decisions and mistakes? Edit. First off, thanks a ton to everyone who chimed in with advice. It's really helpful to hear different viewpoints. I've decided to sit down and have a serious chat with my mom. I want to tell her all about the things Jessica has done in the past, the stuff that really bugs me. My goal is to help my mom understand why I'm not jumping for joy about my brother Harry's engagement to Jessica. But at the end of the day, it's really up to Harry. It's his life and his choice, right? So I also need to have a heart-to-heart with Harry. I want to find out what exactly he told Jessica about our previous talk. Like, did he tell her everything I said? And I'm curious about how Jessica reacted to that. Depending on how that goes, I might even consider talking to Jessica directly, just to clear the air or at least to understand where she stands. I've also been thinking about maybe seeing a therapist to talk all this out, but honestly, I'm not in a spot where I can do that right now. And even though part of me is like, maybe I should just cut ties and not deal with any family drama, I know that's not what I really want. I still want to have my family in my life, especially during important times. The rules for how to handle all this seem pretty strict, but I get that they're there for a reason. If you're curious about how everything turns out, just hit me up. I'd be happy to share the updates. Haha, so that's the plan. It's going to be a bit of a journey, but hopefully, it leads to a better place for everyone involved. Now for the updates. Update 1. Thanks for all the messages and comments asking about how things went after my last post about not being super excited about my brother Harry's engagement. So after seeing what everyone thought, I realized that while I wasn't wrong for feeling how I did, I would definitely be stepping into not cool territory if I kept opposing Harry's relationship too much. The last thing I want is for Harry to think I don't support him or for him to stop sharing stuff with me about his life. I decided the best thing to do was to just keep my opinions to myself and go with the flow of what Harry wanted. On Tuesday, he sent me a message asking if I wanted to be a bridesmaid for Jessica or a groomsman for him at the wedding. It was pretty obvious he knew I wasn't Jessica's biggest fan, but he still wanted me to be a part of their big day. I'm all about being supportive, so I agreed to be a bridesmaid. I thought it might be a good chance to see if Jessica and I could get along better. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't super excited about it, but I wanted to give it a shot. To be honest, I also had a bit of a plan. I know Jessica tends to change her behavior depending on who she's around, which I think is part of how she got Harry to propose in the first place. So while I'm going into this bridesmaid role to support my brother, I'm also keeping an eye out. I want to understand better how Jessica operates, especially around different people. Maybe this will help me figure out if there's a way to bridge the gap between us, or at least confirm my concerns. Either way, I'm going in with an open mind and hoping for the best while being prepared for anything, of course. I thought that just maybe, if I could show Harry how Jessica acts with her girls, he might reconsider his decision to marry her. Anyway, on Thursday, I got added to a Facebook Messenger chat named A Brilliant Bridal. In it, Jessica laid out her ground rules for being in the bridal party. They are almost verbatim. Participation in my bridal party is not just an honor. It's an investment. Be prepared to spend at least $11,000 on attire and accessories alone. I can make exceptions, but only if you ask me. I alone will dictate the narrative of my wedding on social media. Any premature posts, especially unflattering photos of me, will result in immediate expulsion. Your weight will be monitored weekly. Anyone not fitting into their dress will be kindly asked to step down. This wedding will look picture perfect, and I can't have you ruining the aesthetics. From now until the wedding, I expect you to be on call July 24th. Wedding emergencies are real, and your commitment to solving them will be a true test of your friendship. You will fund and organize a lavish bachelorette party in my honor, fake exotic destination, luxury accommodations, and Instagram-worthy moments. You will have fun, not just for your sake, but for me as well. Upon reading this, I just burst out laughing. Screenshot click. I might. I think I might be able to convince Harry for marrying Jessica after all. I'm just deciding now if I should play it cool and act like the rules are normal but bring it up with Harry, or maybe show my mother because I know it would make her flip and almost certainly forgive me for sighing when Harry told us about the engagement. Update 2. Thanks for all the advice and support for my whole situation with my brother getting engaged to an incredibly annoying former boy who has been manipulating him and posting an update since a lot of people asked. I'm going to have to be a bit of a disappointment though. After my last post, a lot of people were suggesting that I should be tricky and go to my mother and ask to borrow money to make the appropriate investment for being in Jessica's bridal party. I thought about that but realized it would be a little bit too over the top, so instead, I just sent a screenshot of Jessica's rules and a couple of other insane things she posted in the group chat to Harry and asked for his advice, telling him I know I said that I wanted to join the bridal party to get to know Jessica better, but I'm worried it might not actually be good for me. You think I could bail and join your party instead? He called me instead of texting back and definitely sounded pretty surprised by what I showed him. I'm certain that the side of Jessica shown in those rules and other messages, including a new one saying that if your BMI is over 22, you're out of the wedding and the group chat, is not the side of herself that she showed to him. We had a good hour or so of conversation about what things were like between the two of them, and I learned a lot about where he was coming from. From what he told me, it sounds like getting married was really Jessica's idea. She'd been going through some tough times lately and apparently had struggled with depression in recent years. She always wanted this perfect wedding and perfect married life, and she told him that it would make her feel better and fix all of her issues if he proposed. So Harry, being the good person that he is, did it. He took pity on her, even though he didn't really feel ready yet. He says he doesn't regret it though. She has been so much happier since the proposal, he said, and he's no longer worried about her running away or harming herself or worse. That said, he said he was still shocked by what she posted to her girls and said he didn't know what to do next. I told him I'm worried about him and his future if he stays with Jessica and goes through with the marriage. He thanked me and hung up. He still sounded pretty shaken. The next day, he asked me to call him, so I do that. He explained to me that everything was okay, and he talked to Jessica about the whole situation. She told him it was just a joke and the kind of thing her friends were used to sending in their messages. Apparently, she apologized and said it was her fault for not making sure that I was on her level. Harry's words, trying to quote Jessica after VW. I'm pretty skeptical of that, though. She seemed serious to me. She also seemed serious when she messaged me privately, "You are on thin ice." She also sent another message in the main group chat saying, "This is all of y'all's reminder that I need your full support, and any undermining of my wedding will have serious consequences." So that's where things stand. I told Harry that I don't really believe it was a joke, and I believe that Jessica is trying to control him just like she's trying to control her bridesmaids. He just said that he's in a difficult situation, she's stressed out, and he trusts her. So that's where things stand. Apparently, I'm still in the dark. Bridal party dress stuff is happening in the next week or two. I really thought Harry would get to his senses, but apparently not yet. Now we need to decide what the heck to do next. Update 3. Thanks again for all the support and advice throughout the situation. I'm the girl who is in a messed up situation with my brother who has proposed to his really not good girlfriend who I know from school, and until recently, I was a member of her bridal party. Warning: this is dark and mentions suicide. So the update. I had time at home for spring break, so finally showed my mom the text messages from Jessica in person, including the insane list of rules for the bridal party and her follow-up message to me saying that I was on thin ice after I told my brother. My mom seriously broke down. She didn't apologize for being mad at me when I wasn't pleased to hear the news from the happy couple, but at least she doesn't seem to hold it against me. Aside from that, though, I am honestly surprised Mom took it as seriously as she did. I thought she would say something more like, "It's his life," instead of butting in. Anyway, Mom called Harry right away to talk to him. I asked her to put it on speakerphone, and she did. After a bit, I think that the combination of my own warnings plus her mom's sheer exasperation at the whole situation finally caused Harry to come to his senses. He heard what Mom had to say, and in that moment, I was able to convince him that Jessica wasn't just joking around with her list of rules, especially with the help of the thin ice message. Harry sounded really shaken up and agreed to meet us without bringing Jessica along. So we had dinner at her house and discussed everything. To him, it sounds like he was more in love with Jessica 6 months ago than he is today. He said that over the course of more recent times, he's seen Jessica become more and more reliant on his support, and he hasn't felt like there's much he can do except cave in to what she wants. I think we're seeing the tone of her communications with people outside the relationship made him feel like her depression was more of an act than a real thing. I'm not a psychologist, so I can't say how real that is, but I could believe it. Harry and her mom cried for a while, and then came up with a plan for Harry to call off the engagement and begin to move out over the next few days. He went home, and we stayed in close contact for a while. He told us he was feeling ready and did tell her that he needed to reevaluate some things on his own. Apparently, she did not take it well. Harry stopped responding to us for a day and a half, and then called me. Jessica had begun saying that she had nothing to live for except for Harry, and that if he abandoned her after all this time, then she would have no reason to keep existing. Harry just cried on the phone and said he felt so trapped. I didn't even know what to tell him. I wish I had told him he needed to forget about Jessica and that she was only playing him, but I don't know if he would believe me. Anyway, now Harry hasn't answered any of my calls and is only giving very short and slow answers to texts from her mom and I. Jessica, meanwhile, made a Facebook post of a picture of her heart with tears on it, saying, "If only you knew how much he meant to me, he would never hurt me." She's also posted a lot of nonsense in the Brilliant Bridal Hours group chat and appears to be loving the attention from her friends. I don't know if she forgot I'm in there, but she wants me to see her messages and thinks that will make me feel guilty or something. I just need to make sure that Harry is okay. To be honest, I'm indifferent to Jessica's fate. While it would benefit her to seek assistance, her actions have deeply hurt those close to me, and I'm skeptical she'll change. Frankly, I'm fed up with her. All I desire is the return of my brother. Apologies for the somber tone of this post. Realistically, I believe everything will turn out fine. Both Harry and his mother acknowledge the necessity of him breaking things off with Jessica, and now Harry simply needs to follow through. Afterward, we can share a laugh over Jessica's BMI monitoring plan and her absurd requirement for bridesmaids spinning.